The hunt for hardware has claimed its first trophy. The Supporters' Shield is home in the Fortress, and FC Cincinnati is on top of Major League Soccer. Coach Pat Noonan and his club have not reached the mountaintop just yet, but it's in plain sight. The road to the MLS Cup runs through the Fortress. Cincinnati, here we go. Hey, good evening, everyone, and welcome into FC Cincinnati Weekly alongside Kevin McCluskey. I'm your host, Caleb No. Kevin, it's been a minute, huh?
Yeah, it's been a while.
A wedding, a honeymoon. Congrats.
Thank you. Appreciate it. It's great to be back.
Yeah, congrats to FC Cincinnati supporters as well. The shield is yours. Kevin, we talk about the hunt for hardware on this show, and it sounds good to talk about, sounds good to say it, but now it's a reality for fans.
It actually happened, right? I think that's a great thing. I think, obviously, clinching against Toronto was such a special occasion. You could see the excitement. And then just the days after, kind of leading into the presentation, Wednesday night was something special. So great for us to be able to talk about that. We've talked about it all season, but, finally it's here.
Yeah.
They have the trophy, which is fantastic for the fans.
We got a lot to get to tonight. We start with the most recent game, the celebration game, if you will, Wednesday night. The New York Red Bulls came to town. They were the party guests at the Fortress. Wednesday night felt like the celebration that it was. Unfortunately, the celebration didn't come on a winning night, Kevin.
Yeah, and unfortunately it was, Frankie Amaya, a past FC Cincinnati player that kind of disrupted at the start. It's a good finish. He takes it well, but obviously at that point in time when the fans were there to celebrate, wasn't great reception for Frankie, I'll say that. You were at the game.
Remarks toward Frankie, but that's become a recurring thing.
Yeah, and listen, credit to him. I actually think he had a pretty good game too. So that was the first goal. And then the second goal here, as we just watched, was again another blow. At that point in time, FC Cincinnati had some chances that they created, but just unable to finish. New York, the other side of it, I thought were very ruthless. I thought they played with some conviction. Then second half, Acosta obviously came on. He started to change the game. Energy became very vibrant. And Acosta, as he does, steps up. He takes the penalty kick and he converts it. It
almost looked like a runaway during that sequence, because New York looked like they scored the goal here. And it was actually 3-0 on the scoreboard.
That's right.
Then they go back, they take a look at what should have been a PK from the get-go, and then, you mentioned the PK.
Yeah, and for a second, obviously, we're just looking at the replay here. This is what happened.
It was obvious, right?
Yeah, it was obvious. The referee maybe was out of position a little bit, but I think the fans, certainly had their hearts in their mouth at that time because New York did come down. Thankfully, it was reversed. Acosta stepped up, and again, cool, calm and collected, slotted into the top corner.
Yeah, so it's 3-0 at one point. You look up at the scoreboard, and you're like, oh, man, it's 3-0. Yeah. Then next thing you know, it's 2-1.
Yeah.
And it's like you got a chance. Then it gets chippy down the stretch.
Yeah.
Alvis Powell got a second yellow. Lucho got a yellow. Alvaro Barrial got a yellow. Got a little chippy.
Yeah, and listen, it's always like that between these two teams. There's definitely, I'd say, bitterness, I think is a fair kind of description. Yeah. And every time that these games happen, there's bookings, there's fouls, there's afters, and I think for FC Cincinnati, at this point in time, you felt like maybe they could get enough to get a tie, but it just didn't happen.
Yeah, it didn't happen that way, but it is what it is. It impacted Cincinnati in the fact that they can't break the all-time MLS points record now, but nonetheless, they get the Supporters' Shield. It was a celebration. After the game, they bring out the Supporters' Shield. It was presented to the team by the fans. We'll get into that more in our second segment. We do have a supporter in-house with the trophy, with the shield. It'll be on set with us next, along with co-CEO Jeff Berding. So we'll talk a lot more about that. The shield was actually clinched last Saturday when FC Cincinnati went up to Toronto, up north, a meeting between the first and last place teams in the Eastern Conference, FC Cincinnati and again Toronto. Luciano Acosta looking to get his third goal in as many games and stay atop the league scoring table. But on this night, it was Brandon Vasquez who found the net. And it's good when you've got so many players who can be scoring threats.
Yeah, definitely. Listen, Vasquez is, especially last season, was so strong for the attack. This season has really come into form at the right time too. And I think for Brandon, it was a good finish. He was in the right position. Good instinct to kind of turn and hit that trigger. And as you said, for FC Cincinnati with the attack, they've got different players they can kind of depend upon to make the game different.
Yeah, so FC Cincinnati goes up 2-0 in the first half here, but Toronto answers and they tie it up before the half. They go into halftime 2-2.
Yeah, and again, this is the at the half, obviously it was 2-2. But then in the second half, things again started to warm up. This is Brandon's second goal.
That made it 2-0.
Yeah, and Aaron Bupenza, as the game kind of continued, started to get hot as well. This is our Bupenza again with the finish to make it 3-2. But throughout the game, I thought he was really starting to show good form. And another example of a player that has the ability to change games, and he's an exciting prospect for the future.
And Lucho with the assist there. The highest goals per game average on FC Cincinnati this year, Aaron Bupenza, who came on midway through the season, and he seems to be fitting in just fine.
He's clicking, and that's what I'm saying. I think at the very start...
I say just fine, but very well.
Oh, yeah. A lot of fans could see kind of, his attributes and some of his positives play, but he's starting to really hit stride and take it to a different level.
Yeah, the celebration started to build into the final whistle. The shield was theirs at that point. They knew it.
Yeah, and listen, that moment... it's hard to replicate. Even when you get presented, I still don't think it matches when you actually clinch, right? And you can see it in the fans' face, or the players' face, sorry. And the fans, of course, were so excited that night, and that extended into Wednesday celebrations.
All right, let's turn to tomorrow's game now, which can't change FC Cincinnati's position in the playoffs, but their opponent has a lot on the line. It's a rematch of that brutal, dare we mention it, the U.S. Open Cup semifinal from last month against Inter Miami. Let's take a look now at our match preview brought to you by Tri-State GMC Buick. Kevin, the big question regarding Inter Miami right now is a big question, right? Will Messi play?
Yeah, I don't think he will. I mean, it is kind of my guess, but, they're keeping that very close to their chest. The club, of course, they're trying to protect the interest of their franchise and a player that's very special. But for FC Cincinnati, of course, a chance for a little bit of redemption. I think there's definitely a little bit of an edge that will come with it. With Messi, if he plays or if he doesn't play, I think FC Cincinnati, especially after the loss against New York, I think will be ready to come and a little bit of fire in their belly. Yeah,
and so, if Miami could eke their way into the playoffs, that's a team that FC Cincinnati could see long from now. So heading into this final couple games of the regular season, where's the focus at for FC Cincinnati? Obviously you'd like to win, but I would think the focus really shifts to the playoffs, right?
It shifts to the playoffs, but I think, just going back to your point, I think they want to try to avoid Miami, right? So I think if they can damage this weekend, if Messi's not playing,
there you go.
That puts them in a good position. We saw a bit of rotation Wednesday night, of course, for rest of some of those players that have played so much. So it shifts, of course, to the playoffs because, again, a successful team, a hungry team, they're not going to be satisfied with just the Shield. They want to go for the Cup. And I think for FC Cincinnati, I think for the team, Pat Noonan has got them reset. I think losing this past Wednesday against New York, I think, is a good thing because it gives you a little bit of fuel.
Really?
Yeah, I think, a coach can use it to his benefit, as far as motivation and kind of put that carrot back out there. And these players at this point in time are probably, intrinsically motivated to a point where they've become winners. So
yeah, no doubt about it. You're hearing all these good things about yourself. You're hearing from the outside world, hey, we just won the Supporter Shield. The feeling around Major League Soccer is that this is a team that can really compete for not just that trophy, but for another trophy at the end of the season too. And maybe there is a silver lining to being humbled a little bit. They're not going to say that, but we can say
for
that.
Sure. And that's sport, right? Because we've obviously played it, and we see it. I do think those little sometimes speed bumps, I'll call them that, can be used the right way. You saw even the second half.
I think that's important. Using it, knowing how to use it, right?
100%. And that I think that's a skill that Pat has. I think he knows his players. He's going to be consistent with his approach.
Sure.
So he's not going to let his players back down. And I think the whole city now is excited. It's look, this team can be successful, so consistent throughout the season. But let's go get the Cup.
Yep, consistency's been the big thing there for FC Cincinnati all season long.
Yep.
You can listen to Kevin and his partner, Tom Gallardo, Tommy G, on the radio on ESPN 1530 during the games or on iHeartRadio. And as always, don't forget to tune in to Kevin and Tommy's audio broadcast when you watch on Apple TV, MLS Season Pass. That's when the orange and blue are at home. Yeah. I just mixed the two-year-olds' names together.
Well, I've been called Kevy before,
call you
too.
Kevy, whatever. Thank you so much, man.
Thanks,
come back anytime. We talked about the Supporter Shield presentation Wednesday night. After the break, we'll have the Shield here on set with us, and we'll talk to the club's co-CEO, Jeff Berding, about that big accomplishment for the club and the big night for the fans. Stay with us. Hey, welcome back, everyone, to FC Cincinnati Weekly, and welcome to our guest, Jeff Berding, co-CEO of FC Cincinnati. He's brought along with him the symbol of success in Major League Soccer was presented to the fans and the team on Wednesday night, the MLS Supporters Shield. Jeff, it's the first time we've had you on set for the show, and what a special time to do it when we got this thing behind us.
I come with a special guest, so it
Yeah.
makes my appearance a little more meaningful.
Yeah. You've gotten to hold it.
I have.
Right? Yeah. What did you think of it when you first held it up, when you first saw it? Like, was it how heavy it is, or was it how shiny it is? Like, what is it about this thing when you first...
It is surprisingly heavy. And but it should be, because it's a big trophy. It's a big moment for our club. And it's appropriate that our first MLS trophy, we, of course, won one of these in the USL, but it's the Supporter Shield, which really is the fans' trophy. There's custodians here from our supporters groups, and it's appropriate that we have this because our fans are the ones that birthed FC Cincinnati.
Yeah, when you got to see the players hold that thing up on Wednesday night, and you see kind of the culmination of everything that's happened all in that one moment, what was that like for you?
Certainly a lot of pride, gratitude that we've earned this on behalf of the city.
Yeah.
Carl Lindner and I always said we're proud to represent Cincinnati. This is a city we love. And this is a great city, and our sports teams can send a message to the rest of the world that this is a championship city. And we did that in the minor leagues, and then we learned painfully, but we did learn that winning was going to be harder in Major League Soccer.
Sure.
So we rebooted. We brought in Chris Albright, Pat Noonan, a wonderful soccer staff, added a couple new players to Brandon and Lucho and Alvaro and Nick Haglin. And yes, now we're the best team in Major League Soccer.
Have you taken time yet over the last few days, and you reflected just now a little bit, but to reflect personally on what this club has been through over the last 5 or 6 years, that the wooden spoon, the 3 straight wooden spoons, but then the turnaround over the last couple of years, and why this means even maybe a little more?
Sure. Well, adversity can either make you or break you. And there's no question that those 3 years of losing were really difficult, not proud moments, because we really wanted to represent Cincinnati as a winning franchise on behalf of our fans. But it makes it more meaningful because, again, the fans stuck with us. They stayed dedicated. They showed up in the Bailey and were chanting and singing for some teams that weren't very good and we weren't getting results. But they stayed true to their love of city and club. And we had to make changes. And so my leadership style evolved a little bit. And, you know, the startup mentality where we push people to the top of the mountain to get into Major League Soccer and open the Brilliant Stadium, that same leadership style wasn't going to work. And so I had to retool. We had to reboot our soccer leadership. But what was consistent that whole time while we were learning was love from our fans.
It is called the Supporter Shield, and you mentioned the fans. I mean, you've gone back to the fans multiple times here. It's called the Supporter Shield. That's because it comes from, but it also goes to the fans in a lot of ways.
Yes, and again, for us, when you think of the origin of FC Cincinnati, our story really began at Nippert with the Bailey. And people were coming to our matches who weren't soccer fans because the word of mouth was, you have to see this end of the stadium. The supporters are crazy. They sing, and there's smoke, and there's chants, and there's songs. They stand the whole time. And so people started just coming to our games. And our soccer team was pretty good, too.
Yeah.
But the environment was special. And that was because of the birth of the Bailey and that supporter culture where they took ownership of this club. So for us to be able to give our supporters and our city that we love this trophy, it's so special because it is the love of city that we share with our supporters that is what made this possible.
Yeah, you said the club the birth of the club came with the fans. The birth of this trophy came with the fans, with MLS fans and supporters back in the 1990s. Now, the importance or the significance of this award, not the trophy itself, but winning this regular season title, if you will. If you think about it, around the world, most leagues, that's all it is a regular season. That's what you play for all year long. There is no postseason. This is it. This is exactly what that represents. So for those who aren't necessarily may be familiar with what the Supporter Shield represents, how big of a thing is this for this franchise and for this city?
Well, you said it, in the rest of the world. So when Man City or Liverpool or Bayern Munich or Real Madrid, when they are hoisting their trophies, it's not because they won a playoff. It's because they were the best team in the league over 6 months, 8 months, 34, 38 matches, week in and week out, injuries and rotating the roster. And you have earned yourself the championship of your league. And that is effectively what we have done. So when we're recruiting players from leagues around the world, they see us as the league champion.
And at the top of the standings.
100%. Because we earned it the way that soccer people are accustomed to seeing it earned, week in and week out over the course of the entire season.
The Supporter Shield has been presented to the team and the fans, and now it has been presented here on FC Cincinnati Weekly. Jeff, co-CEO of FC Cincinnati. I just stuck my hand in front of it. Let's get another shot. Can we get another close-up shot of the trophy there? And I promise I won't stick my hand in front of it this time. Jeff, thank you so much for coming by this week.
Appreciate you doing the show with us this year. It's been great.
Of course, man. And your debut on FC Cincinnati Weekly. How's it feel?
It feels great because my debut is with the Supporter Shield.
Is also the debut of this year on the show.
It's not just for an interview. It's to bring the trophy.
All right.
And that's what we aim to do.
Absolutely. And maybe in the future, too.
We have
speaking that into
more
existence.
mountains to climb and more winning to do.
Thank you, man. Coming up next, we'll go back to the night of the Shield clinching win in Toronto and the celebration after with the fans at the airport when the team landed. FC Cincinnati Weekly will be right back as the party with the Shield continues. Don't go away.
With a playoff spot in hand and the Shield at their fingertips. It's feeling like this gap is too big for anyone else to make up.
Hello, good evening, and a warm welcome into downtown Toronto.
Así luce la hermosa ciudad de Toronto, Canadá, para el duelo de la semana 35 en la MLS.
Supporter Shield pacesetters FC Cincinnati look to mark an historic club record season with the team's first trophy.
Think about one thing: the sacrifices our families made to put ourselves in this position.
And we are underway. Andy Murphy leading it off, and there's no keeping that one out. Brandon Vasquez in the right spot, and Cincinnati have their reward.
Down to Barrial back to Bupenza, takes a shot. Vasquez buries it. A brace for Brandon Vasquez in the first half. 2-0 to the Orange.
Costa, sigue a Costa, se mete al área grande, toca con Bupenza.
2023 Supporter Shield winners. A first trophy in their MLS era, and now they celebrate.
Let's go! Woo!
So cool to see the fans get to celebrate with the players when they landed at the airport. A fun night for everybody. Of course, the time to celebrate that was this week. Now it's on to what's left of the season, then the MLS playoffs and the MLS Cup. That's the next trophy we'd love to see Jeff Berding bring onto the set and put right here where the Supporter Shield was. Now here's a look at the saves of the month, brought to you by Allstate.
Battling back, but this is Wagner. Curls this ball in. Lessness in the area, but it's picked away by Celentano.
Celentano is still the danger, not clear. The offense sends it away. To the attack coach for Bobby Franklin, who beats it. And plucked out of the air by Celentano.
Welcome back, everyone, to FC Cincinnati Weekly. Now, the season is winding down, but there is still one more home game at the Fortress. You can still get tickets. It's after the next international break and just before the playoffs. Atlanta United, next victim to enter the Fortress on Saturday, October 21st. Unusual start time because that is decision day in MLS. But hey, what do you know about that as an FC Cincinnati fan? You got nothing to worry about. 6 o'clock start time that night. Go to fccincinnati.com for tickets. Well, that is our show for this week. Thank you so much for watching. Join us here every Friday night, 7:30 for FC Cincinnati Weekly, the most comprehensive coverage of the orange and blue you'll find anywhere out there. For Kevin McCluskey and the rest of our FC Cincinnati Weekly crew, have a great night and go FC Cincinnati.
Make it happen. All right, it's going to be a dogfight. No other pack I'd rather run with than the ones in this.
On the ensuing quarter, the in-swinger.